These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Advantage of those spots when you come up and, bases loaded and the few opportunities that we had, we just didn't do it. We really only had to do a little bit because our pitchers did a good job again. They went out there and threw the ball very well. Joe was good. Gives up some singles in the first inning and the runs score, and not a ton you're going to do about some of that. And that was the end of it. Really, he shut the door after that, and the guys came in out of the bullpen and gave us a shot. But, when you don't score, you're not going to win, obviously.
Mackie and Judd here, Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd, your home for daily Minnesota sports entertainment, speculation, and therapy. And by popular demand, these Monday episodes will include a State of the Twins breakdown. We're going to dive into, it'll be kind of like our Purple Daily State of the Vikings offense. I'm going to give you guys a handful of categories, and we're going to do a deep dive. I'll usually bring, my background as a baseball writer includes a lot of nerdy statistics, and so I'll try to root it in data.
Geek.
But I might also pull, for instance, Judd got into a fight with a bunch of Twins fans on Twitter this weekend, so that will be one of the categories.
God, did I get jumped. Oh, my God.
Well, what did you expect? You're bringing up small sample sizes early in the season, guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Small sample sizes.
It is. It is a small. We'll get into it. Well, it's the second category, so gear up. I didn't want to start with it because I feel like it's too negative. I feel like it does. I feel like the Carlos Correa stuff doesn't accurately represent the biggest headline of the season for the Twins. So it will be the second category in my 4 categories for you. Okay?
I have a feeling I know what number 1 is.
Okay.
And it should be.
Okay. We'll see. And the State of the Twins here is presented by our new friends at Modist. That's right. Just steps away from Target Field. They have a tap room in the North Loop, cans available in liquor stores throughout the metro. In fact, they have a 19-ounce, we're calling the 19-ounce cans are stovepipes of some Modist mainstays. The Dream Yard, a stovepipe. Let's get it. I want to see Judd Stone Cold Steve Austin a stovepipe and then crush it against his head.
I like the term.
The Crooked Forest Smoked Lager, by the way, in the tap room, legitimately one of the best, most unique beers I've ever had. It steps away from Target Field and steps away from old Dex tweets as well. That's right. Scooter right away.
There's a great selection of Modist. I've been going there for a long time, and I love going there before a Twins game, too. It's always happening over there. So if you want a nice little vibe, too, as you're pre-gaming and as you're getting ready to go watch some baseball at Target Field, I highly recommend checking out our friends at Modist. And they got a great selection of different brews, so whether you want an ale or like an IPA or a stout, plenty of great options at Modist. They're one of the best around. Go check them out.
Legitimately one of the coolest, most unique craft breweries in the Twin Cities. They opened in 2016, and they have been exploding and on the rise ever since. Just steps away from Target Field and the light rail. Modist Brewing. All right, boys. It's time for the State of the Twins here. Category number 1, pitching dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you thought the category was going to be?
100%. Yeah.
You knew that the homer was going to go positive here?
No, it's been great. No, it dovetails in perfectly with category 2. But yes, they've been fantastic.
They've been absolutely fantastic. Salivate through the first topic for the second topic. But this is the best Twins pitching staff we have seen in years, maybe even decades, if you just take the first 5 weeks of the season as a snapshot. So they are second in Major League Baseball. This is the entire staff now. Second in Major League Baseball in earned run average. They're first in Major League Baseball in xFIP, which is it's like an advanced ERA. I could explain it to you, but then I'd have to wake you up after 5 minutes. They're second in strikeout rate, and Twins relievers are tied for 5th in highest fastball velocity. So a lot of good things percolating here for the Twins pitching staff. Sonny Gray, in particular, leads Major League Baseball with a 1.35 earned run average through 7 starts. And if you're wondering, how sustainable is that? How fluky is? I mean, he's obviously not going to finish with a 1.35 ERA, but his expected ERA ranks 7th in baseball. So it's not all that fluky. So just like the starting rotation, they've had some banged up guys. But then Bailey Ober steps in, and he's very good. I don't know if they have a reliable number 5 starter yet, unless you think Louis Varland is going to stick around for a long time. But this is one of the best pitching staffs we've seen the Twins trot out in years to this point.
and it's been a pleasure to watch. It is so nice to watch, for the most part, fundamentally good pitching, right? On a nightly basis. Yes. I am. You know what? If this team just across the board stunk, I'd be like, that's too bad. But the reality is, the starting pitching especially, but the majority of the bullpen too, has put this team in a position that its pitching, to your point, rarely puts it. And that is in a bad division to be pulling away by a mile. Like the quality of their starts is unquestioned. Sonny Gray had a bad game for him on Saturday. He had a bad inning. He gave up 3 runs, okay? And that was like, well, he had a bad, okay, yeah, for him, but that's 3 runs. That's nothing in baseball. So I'm with you completely. Headline 1, and the reason for optimism is that the pitching so far has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And pitching, good starting pitching, good bullpen, that will get you far in the postseason. And I know the offense has been a problem. I'm sure we're going to get to it here in this episode. But you can win games in the playoffs by 3-2. And the Twins have gone to the playoffs a lot, and they haven't had the horses to do so. So this is the first time where you've seen plenty of teams, right? The Giants, when they won their 3 World Series, that was all on the backbone of pitching and pretty mediocre and honestly less than average hitting. They were able to do that. So I think having enough pitching depth going into a playoff series, and for a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 20 years, the pitching can carry them to a playoff win, which is huge.
Yeah, and if you think about some of the rotations they've put out there over the years, where you get to your number 3 starter in a playoff series, I covered the 2010 team. They literally ran Brian Dunsing out as a number 3 starter at Yankee Stadium in a do-or-die game.
It got worse.
Randy Dobnak.
Game 2 with Randy Dobnak is worse than Dunsing.
And you got to get there. You got to get to October, and they've already had the injury bug bite them with 40% of their rotation. But if you went into a 5-game playoff series, and your starting pitchers in whatever order were Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, and Pablo Lopez, with one of the hardest throwing strikeout bullpens in baseball, you'd feel a lot better about that than almost any. Go back to 2001, 2002 when the Twins became competitive again, after a decade of doldrums. I would run, again, we're 5 months away from the actual playoffs, but I would run that trio out and this bullpen out over almost anything we've seen since like maybe 2004.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's really the first time in a long time, too, where I feel like you don't get to the 3rd or 4th guy and just cover your face and be like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, that's a loss. And to their credit, I will say this. So the vast majority of this starting staff right now has been acquired through trades. Ober, I think, can pitch, though. Like, the more I watch him pitch, he's pretty damn solid. Mm-hmm. And so there's not one. So like when Malley goes out, which is unfortunate, it's not a disaster. Mm-hmm. It's not a complete train wreck of now we got to promote a guy and he's going to give up 6 runs.
I would keep an eye to in Double-A right now. Their Double-A pitching staff is kind of a train wreck, but Blaine Enlow is a former, I think, 3rd-round pick he was one of those guys that I think they gave him like a lot of money over slot so that they could assure that he was going to be signed, and he's off to a really good start. So a guy to keep an eye on. They might have some more depth coming up, but the pitching has been dominant so far. All right, category number 2 here, State of the Twins Monday. Carlos Correa is a figurehead for the Twins' offensive struggles. And I'll set this up for Judd here because I know he was fighting about this all weekend. But the Twins' offense so far, 28th in on-base percentage, 20th in weighted on-base average, which includes, it's like OPS, but it properly weighs on-base versus slugging. And the Twins are 20th in that category. They're 19th in runs per game, which is actually kind of a minor miracle that they're top 20 in runs despite being 28th in on-base. And the reason for that is they've actually been pretty good with runners in scoring position, so they have been cashing in limited opportunities, but they've been cashing in. They have the second best OPS with runners in scoring position, but the second most strikeouts in all of baseball, and they're tied for last in batting average on balls in play, which could be some bad luck. It also could just be weak contact. They're hitting a bunch of dribblers and pop-ups and stuff. So with that, Carlos Correa is hitting 193 with a 271 on base and a 378 slugging. All of those would be career lows for Carlos Correa. Now we're only 1/5 of the way through the season, but that's a really bad start for both the offense and Carlos Correa. Judd points it out on Twitter over the weekend and just gets savaged by Twins fans.
So here's what I tweeted.
Speak for yourself.
Here's what I tweeted. Because you would have thought I tweeted, Carlos Correa is a bust. He sucks, and I would prefer to have Lenny Faedo playing shortstop, okay? Here's all I tweeted. Does anyone else find it noteworthy that Carlos Correa is, at the time, hitting 198? How long do we just ignore this? He is making $36 million. That's not the type of salary that creates room for a lot of acceptance. That's all I tweeted. And again, you would have thought I tweeted, this guy is a bum. He's terrible. I fully expect that he will not end the season below the Mendoza line, all right? But I've been thinking about how to contextualize this because I feel like it's a fight against the advanced metrics people and then people who come off the top rope and say he sucks, they shouldn't have signed him, which I don't agree with. And by the way, he is, just to make this extremely, extremely clear, he is the best Twins shortstop in the field, I think, since Greg Gagne, and he's one of the best I've seen, okay? And he has now turned what used to be plays that weren't made by guys like Polanco into routine plays that we just accept. And he deserves credit. So I am not saying this guy stinks. He does not. But here's the way I want to bring this to you guys. Because we could debate small sample size. No, it's into May, blah, blah, blah. Here's my thought. This pitching staff is putting you in a position on a damn near nightly basis to pull away with a bad division. You just played 6 road games, 3 against the White Sox, 3 against Cleveland, in which you went 2-4. You gave up 18 runs, pretty damn good, and you scored 18, including 7 in one game. So when I talk about Correa and when I talk about the bats overall, what I see here in the spring, I don't want to focus on the sample size for players. I want to focus on an opportunity that's being lost to stockpile wins right now. I think that's the most important thing because run scoring, like we could go through any stat that you guys want, but the one stat that we're all going to agree on, the important one, is run scoring. And I just think it's a damn shame that what has been just fantastic pitching is not often enough right now being capitalized on to have a more significant lead in a division that's begging the Twins, begging them to run away with it right now.
Well, but they kind of like they consciously made this sacrifice by trading Luis Ariz, who I think is still batting over 430.
Yeah, right? I think you're right. Yeah.
He's batting like 430. He's one of the best on-base guys, one of the best batting average guys. He's off to an incredible start. They made a conscious decision when they traded Luis Ariz for Pablo Lopez, and they said, we need to start with pitching. And my contention there has been not that it was a bad trade. I think it'll play itself out. But that if they had been developing more pitching over the last 6 years since Derek Falvey took over, then they wouldn't have to trade one of the best hitters in baseball, at least from an on-base perspective and batting average perspective, for like a number 2, number 3 starter. But they felt the need to do that. So they consciously sacrificed offense for pitching. And to this point, they're 19-16. If they play 19-16 baseball for a full season, they're an 88-win team. I think 88 wins gets you this division with room to spare.
Yeah.
So even though it was a bad last 6 games, this might, I mean, Declan brought up a really good, I think it's way too early to like say this is the Giants because that was like the Giants were kind of a dynasty. But those teams, I mean, though they had some really bad, like didn't the Giants win the World Series one year with the fewest amount of home runs of any team in baseball in the regular season?
Yes.
So if you can't pitch and you can't get anyone out, you're screwed. And so if the Twins starting point is let's just start by having a really good rotation and a really good bullpen, and let's just hold teams to 2 or 3 runs per game. Let's see where it falls. If we need to get reinforcements on the offensive side, we can do it. I'm okay with that. Is it a little bit of a small sample size to be like making conclusions about the offense right now? Probably. But I'm just like, I guess I'm okay with sacrificing some hitting for dominant pitching because they're playing at almost a 90-win pace, and it's working from that perspective right now.
But it's fair when you pay the amount that they do to a guy like Correa to expect more there too.
But don't you think, this is where I'll push back on you. I think there's room for 2 things. He's off to a crappy start, and you're right, and it should be talked about. But at the same time, is it likely that he's going to be hitting 200 by the time August rolls around? You know, guys have bad months. Some of the best hitters in baseball will hit 220 for a month or under 200, except for maybe like the Joe Mauers, just the great pure hitters.
Right.
So before I join you on I'm okay, point it out, send a tweet.
Yeah, I just pointed it out too. That's the thing is I didn't rip him. I pointed it out for what he's making.
You are a noted Carlos Correa hater, though. Didn't you call him a bust last season? You called him some point. Yeah, well, he a bust last season.
Well, he got hot in September when the team was in the toilet.
Yeah, he was pretty bad in the clutch last year.
Yeah,
and
that doesn't make me happy.
Tried to sign with.
I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat that crap. Everyone else might. I ain't doing that.
Speaking of the Giants, he'd rather be a Giant or a Met right now, and that's fine. You know, he's settled for his third option. But I just think, and I'll shut up so Dex can chime in here too. I just think it's too early to be like pounding on Carlos Correa because he had a bad first month of the season. If he's still hitting 200 and an on-base percentage below 300 at the end of May, okay, now is he injured? Then there's probably a deeper conversation. But when a guy is 28 years old and has almost a decade of track record, I tend to lean toward the track record more than the small sample size first month.
All I did was point it out. Deserves to be talked about. That's all I said.
You got the smoke. Yeah. You got the small sample size.
Well, that's fine,
smoke.
But understand that I'm right about it. I mean, it does deserve to be pointed out. It's not pointed out nearly enough.
What is your hypothesis? When you say you are right, what is your hypothesis?
That when you get into May and a guy who's being paid as much as he is below 200, I deserve the smoke if he's like at 225 and he is at below 200. And as you went through, you got to really search to find a positive offensive statistic right now.
And I know that there's probably, because I'll represent the analytics crowd here, that people are saying, why, who's this boomer talking about batting average, right? Okay, I'll translate. His OPS plus is 79, so it's well below average. His weighted on base average is well below average. His weighted runs created are well below average. So whether you're talking batting average or analytics, he's been a very, very bad offensive performer so far. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think your hypothesis would be that Carlos Correa has been a bad baseball player through the first month of the season.
No, bad offensive. He's great at shortstop. I'm not taking that away. He's unbelievable, dude. He's been bad at bat. But as far as he makes plays at shortstop that we now just go, nice play.
Yeah.
No, it's not a nice
play.
And
because he's such a great shortstop,
it helps.
He's still a positive value player, even when he's having for him an historically bad start to the season.
I just the Twin and he is, to Judd's point, he is probably the best shortstop that I've even seen in a Twins uniform. But they have had some wizards at short. Maybe that's too high of a word. They've had above average shortstops that could not hit the baseball to save their bleeping lives before. They've had Pedro Flormones. Nick Punto has had good infield seasons, but they could not hit for days. And I understand that Flormones and Puntos, and you can go down the hilarious list of shortstops that they have had. Adam Everett's a good one. They've had a ton of those guys that haven't been on the same superstar status of Correa, and it's deserving so. I mean, Judd and I have been to a few games, and I've been to a few games without him just in the press box, and he gets booed. Like, Carlos Correa gets booed by Target Field fans when he comes up with runners at second and third and strikes out, and deservingly so, by the way.
Yeah, and if I had to bet, even all that said, I'm sure there are platforms you can buy stock in a player. I would buy Carlos Correa stock from now until the end of the year. This is a great time to buy Carlos Correa offensive stock.
Absolutely. I think one thing that's frustrating about some baseball fans is the fact that it feels like because of the sample size fixation that we shouldn't have discussions about things because to me, the baseball season is written in chapters, okay? It's written in chapters. It's not one whole story. That's the end result. But the fact that he has struggled into May is interesting to me. It's worth, and it feels like there's a faction again, because I can't say it's all fans, but there's a segment that feels like even pointing out a chapter is like, well, you can't, no, that chapter don't count. It's too early to count that chapter. No, this is what makes baseball fun. Now, if I had come to you first weekend and been like, Carlos Correa sucks so far, you'd say, dude, it's a week in. But we're a month plus in now. He has struggled at the plate. I am more than willing to give him his props at shortstop, but I do think that a discussion about the evolution of a team becomes intriguing, which again is why the pitching discussion to me is so fantastic. Because we're now more than a month in, and this pitching's been, unlike anything we've seen consistently in how long, which is great.
Yeah. All right. So don't jump Judd. He's just bringing
Well, I'm okay with being jumped. Just understand what you're jumping me for. And if I tweet a guy sucks, then jump me.
Okay. I have 2 more categories for you guys. We're actually going to go back to pitching for the third category here because there might be a philosophy change. But if you are interested in going to a Twins game, you can get tickets. Twins.com/tickets. If you've yet to see designated hitter Byron Buxton, extraordinaire, who we'll talk about later on this State of the Twins episode, you can find him out there. If you want to see Carlos Correa struggling to hit 200, all these things are in play at Target Field. To me, the best bar in the Twin Cities is Target Field, by the way. Yes. So twins.com/tickets.
This month is outstanding. Padres
baby.
This week, which is going to be great. Cubs on the weekend. And then I believe after a road trip, the Giants come in. So some good National League teams. But the Padres should be great fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I'll be there.
Yes. Okay, category number 3, pitching philosophy change? Or maybe just trusting better pitchers.
All right.
So last season, infamously, and we crushed the Twins for this, Twin starters faced the third time through the order, the fewest amount of times in all of baseball. And when they did face the third time through the order last year, they had I think it was like the worst or second worst OPS allowed. So the Twins would say, well, see, that's why we don't let our pitchers go a third time through the order. And I would say, okay, well, other teams have figured out how to let their pitchers go a third time through the order more often and not be a train wreck. So either get better pitchers or better pitching coach or better scouting, find a way to work. The Jack Morrises of the world would say, find a way to save a pitch for the third time through the order, or, pick on a tendency or something. So the Twins were terrible third time through the order, and then it leaked into the bullpen because now your bullpen is stretched out too much, and it was just a bad mix. This season, Twin starters have faced the third time through the order, the 7th most plate appearances, and they have the 4th best OPS against when facing a lineup the third time through the order. It helps when you replace guys like Dylan Bundy and Chris Archer, who are like 4 2/3 and fly guys, with Pablo Lopez and even, dare I say, Bailey Ober. But this is a welcome change, both I think philosophically and just in trusting that you've built a better pitching staff, which is part of the reason too. But I think there's more of a willingness. I think Sonny Gray and I think some of these guys, their calls to the public through the media and probably behind the scenes have benefited. Hey, leave us out there. It's okay. Right. You can trust us, and it'll save the bullpen for 6 months.
Right. It feels like between actually improving the overall starting pitching staff and common sense that they've taken a key step that goes far beyond Baldelli. Like, he's involved, but this was also Falvey, Levine, that entire group. But I think the most important thing is the trimming of no longer going to a garage sale and saying that used to be a new Archer. Let's get that one. And he'd come here and be crap. Bundy. Just go back. Homer Bailey, right? Like the amount of guys of recycled arms that they tried to get. And I don't know if they thought that they could fix them. Clearly they did. But yeah, I think it's one of the most important steps. And I wouldn't be surprised if Baldelli finally said, okay, let's come up with a plan here that works. Because again, I'll go back to saying this. He ended up being the poster child for everything that was wrong, and it probably wasn't fair.
Yeah, he's the one that pulls pitchers. He's the one that sits
Rocco,
that rests players. Right.
And he's probably like, no, I got to do it because these guys aren't that. So there was definitely, it feels like, some type of come to Jesus where they basically said, okay, how do we stop a cycle of, by the way, too, exposing a bullpen that wasn't that great? Mm-hmm. So it's not like you went, okay, we're in the 6th inning and now it's lights out time. It's like, okay, we're in the 6th and we're going to pull the starter and we're in trouble. So, yeah, everything they've done with pitching to me has been a welcome change.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a little bit of both. Like, yes, it certainly is on the on this pie chart of the scale that you have better arms now. You have Pablo Lopez. You have Sonny Gray, who's a trusted vet. Joe Ryan's clearly has taken a next step in his game. So you have guys now in your starting rotation that you do trust. But there is also still that classic gut feeling here of, all right, if my guy is cruising through 2 innings of work, just because the numbers suggest, which, by the way, everyone knows that the lineup gets better a third time through the order. If that guy is cruising and if that guy is being effective, you don't just have to pull the rug underneath because, third time through, the OPS goes up another 100 points.
It should be more nuanced than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's two avenues there. It's not just all, the arms are better. Well, there's also a little bit of thought process that probably goes involved too.
I'm just looking this up to try and find. So last year, full season, the Twins had, out of 162 regular season games, 10 different outings where a pitcher finished 7 innings or more. 10 out of 162. I'm just curious. Have they haven't reached that already this year, have they? Let's see. Let's go to stathead.com.
Probably damn close.
I think Sonny's done it maybe twice.
Probably close, yeah.
Okay, they've already done it 8 times.
Yeah.
8 times.
God.
And they
10
should.
all year last year. And they've done it 8 times this year. Sonny Gray twice, Pablo Lopez 3 times, Joe Ryan twice, and Bailey Ober did it in his last start against Cleveland. 7 innings, no runs. Amazing.
So how much of the former recycled crap group made their last stop here too?
What do you mean? Who's
Archer?
Oh.
He's not pitching now, right?
Oh, guys
Archer's not pitching. Yeah. Is Bundy?
Where'd he get picked
Did
up?
Bundy surface?
He got signed somewhere, didn't he?
Rich
Bundy.
Hill did. And I think he's still like with Pittsburgh or something.
He's still swearing every time he
Homer
throws the ball.
Bailey? I don't think he did.
Okay,
Like
Dylan Bundy's in the Mets organization. He's, oh my God. So he's AAA Mets.
Okay.
4 starts, a 12.71 earned run average in AAA for the Mets.
And you guys defended him last year. Hope you feel guilty.
He was better than I thought he would be last year. Actually.
And Archer is out, I think, of baseball.
Yeah. If you can't, what's the point?
Good broadcaster, though. He definitely should go into broadcast.
He will be, yeah. I could
He's
see
a
him
great
on
analyst.
like whatever if there's ever a TNT version of a pre and post game show.
Yeah.
I could see Chris Archer on that. It's got a personality. So maybe we'll see. It's like kind of a small sample size, but it's a good trend. They're letting pitchers go deeper again. So only 10 times last year, all year did a starting pitcher go 7. It's already happened 8 times. And then category number 4 here, state of the Twins. Byron Buxton, permanent DH is the category. Okay,
Sounds like a TV show.
maybe it is. Maybe
Byron
it's a new Netflix special.
Permanent DH.
But Carlos Correa, according to the Twins media, the assembled Twins media, apparently had a sit-down with Buxton this offseason. Might have been during spring training. I don't remember the timing. But he basically sat Byron Buxton down as they were hanging out over barbecue one night and said, hey guy, you need to hit 500 or 600 times this year. So let's start there. For your career, for our team, you got to get to the plate 500 or 600 times. Not to mention, like, your bonus could trigger if you get to the plate that many times. Don't be selfish was kind of the theme of the conversation. And Byron Buxton did some self-reflecting on, okay, I love playing center field, but am I being selfish by going out there and risking more wear and tear and injury and knee inflammation by standing out in the pasture for 3 hours? And so Carlos was, you want to rip on Carlos Correa. He's just an instrumental leader behind the scenes, Judge.
He's the GM of the team. They've
Buxton.
turned over the keys to Carlos Correa. They admitted it, and it's true. He's the GM.
So he has played in 32 of 35 games so far this year. Byron has.
Yep.
He also has a career-high walk rate, so I think he's seeing the ball very well, comfortable going deeper into counts because the knee doesn't bark as much maybe.
Yep.
I think there were some times last year where he just wanted to swing and get it over with because it was painful. But his 162 game pace this year, if you took his stats and extrapolated for 162 games, we're talking about a 40 home run hitter, 96 RBI, 106 runs, 35 doubles, and obviously a well above average OPS of 860. So, dude, 32 out of 35 games, you're telling me if he keeps up this pace, he's going to play 135, 140 games, maybe more this season.
I never thought I would say this because it sounds crazy, but I'm on board with it.
Yeah.
It works.
I'm on board now. I mean, if the options are he can play or he makes a great catch in the outfield and is lost for a month. DH him. I mean, it sounds nuts until, and I think we talked about this briefly last week. The one thing that really makes up for this is the contract.
Yeah, it's a very team-friendly contract.
Yeah, he didn't kill with that. And at the time, we're all like, why would he take that? I think we're seeing that there at least might have been the thought of a long-term plan here. So Byron Buxton, permanent DH, is actually okay with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's staying healthy. He's hitting bombs. I mean, that can the dude play 130, 40 games? He's only played like over 100 once, essentially. So can he stay healthy? And that's going to be good. I think in general, if this offense can get more production with runners in scoring position in terms of average and driving in those guys, I saw our friend Heather Rule had the note that 49% of the Twins' runs this season have been via the home run.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Which is the highest rate in baseball. So can they figure out more ways? Because, they come up with the bases loaded, it seems like every time, and, strikeout, pop up, strikeout, right? So can they figure out more ways in the offense? And Byron certainly has a lot of power, so this is not just a Byron problem, or I'm not singling him out necessarily, but can the offense in general be a little bit more productive in those bases loaded, runners in scoring position, not have to completely rely on the long ball?
Yeah. And on the Buxton center field thing for a second. So Michael A. Taylor is really the first actual professional major league center fielder that they have signed to back up Byron Buxton in 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And he is currently sixth among all center fielders in ultimate zone rating. There's some different defensive metrics you could look at. He's certainly not. Yeah, that's right.
What's his fielding percentage, Phil? Give me the fielding percentage.
Dude, I'm glad that broadcasts have stopped putting outfield fielding percentage on the screen.
That was the greatest.
It's ridiculous. But he's not like Byron Buxton in his prime level great in center, or even Michael A. Taylor in his prime, because he's not in his prime anymore. But you finally have a guy that can hit enough and can cover enough ground to where you don't feel like, oh my God, if we don't get Buxton back out there, it's another game of, pick your random quad A player. So they put themselves in a nice little position here, and he's on pace to have a really nice season offensively.
That being said, it is a shame, because damn, that guy is fun to watch. But I mean, he's just never proven he can stay healthy, and like we're now to a point where I think what they're doing is smart, but it's too bad too.
No. So there it is. Those are my four categories for you guys. State of the Twins Mondays here on Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd.
Get off my back.
I feel like there's a lot of our listeners and viewers that just hate when we talk Twins because they just aren't quite as popular as they were a few years ago. But then we have a core group of diehard fans that used to listen to the SKOR North Twins show a few years ago. So support this segment. Support this Monday State of the Twins. And if you do, we will continue. And support Modist, by the way, who is sponsoring it. And we'll keep sprinkling in the Twins conversations as they continue to remain relevant. All right. Good talk.
Great talk. Yeah, fantastic talk.